Hello, this is Scott at Aquascapes ATX. I thought I would talk about one of my favorite things, which is gardening in the fall and winter in Austin. Uh, I don't know if you already thought of it. I think probably a lot of people kind of forget about the garden in the winter time, but actually in Austin, we can garden year round. And I would say the best time, of course, is spring. That's when the days are getting longer and plants grow really, really well. But the second best time is fall and winter. And I think the least desirable time is actually middle of summer because it's just so dang hot that everything just dries up. You can't water it enough. And plants wilt, and you have to have shade. And so it's quite a challenge. So really, you start thinking about typical Austin temperatures, 60s and 70s. Get an occasional freeze, so you have to deal with that, but a lot of your cold season vegetables in the cabbage family will tolerate actually a pretty hard freeze, even down into the 20s sometimes, depending especially if you add some row cover or something, they can weather through it. They look a little wilted, but they bounce back pretty good. So I thought I'd walk you around through my garden. What I tend to do is blend the seasons together, so as some of my summer vegetables are starting to fade and stop producing, then I'll pull those and gradually mix in some fall ones. And it is a challenge in September and October to get things to germinate, and you may have to try a couple of times. But the fun thing with the fall gardens is you start with radishes, broccoli rabe, kale, and if they don't, carrots, all those kind of things. If they don't seed the first time, give them a week or two. Just do it again. Seeds are pretty cheap. So let's walk around the garden here. I'll flip views here. So this is a bed that I built, 20 years ago and done various different things with it over time. At one point I decided to put pea gravel on it, which is nice for preserving water, which is important here in Austin. The gravel will tend to keep the moisture in better. And then what I will do is a no-till type of seeding technique. So all this area I don't ever till it up, and there's a lot of good reasons. You can look up no-till gardening, but it's really better for the soil if you don't put a rototiller through it. And also it's really bad for if you have sprinkler systems like that, putting a rototiller in, you're probably going to damage something. So I just don't till. I dig up, so what you can see is I've done a little trench, where I've planted seeds, and then I'll put in a little composted topsoil, like a cow manure or organic topsoil in it, and use that to help the seeds germinate. And what I've done over time, you can see things farther down there I planted sooner, and every week or two add another row in a different thing, so I have a constant stream of vegetables maturing over time instead of having a big hit of everything at once. And then what do I do it all? Even though we have somewhat, we're probably over subscribed now as it is, but it gets you more consistent and continuous harvest. So going down, there's some daikon radishes are just here. The second one is Swiss chard, which is starting to seed out. Beets are a great winter, and the beet itself is really fun to roast, but also when you're thinning out, or even a lot of the smaller, if you're thinning out plants like this row here, you can see there's several that are too thick, and those will just have to be thinned out. But those are great in a salad or a stir fry. Then this is some cabbage on this row here, and then leeks. Leeks are actually, they take a long time to grow, but they will actually make it, with a little bit of shade, they'll make it through the summer. There's a row of beets back there I think I'm going to be able to harvest soon. Then onions are, green onions are a great thing to grow in the winter here in Austin. These are all green onions. Getting the bulb is always a challenge. I'm not sure it's worth the trouble or not. At least I've had, I'm sure other people grow onions quite well, but you want a short season onion. But doing the greens, you can buy them on the internet, and you buy a box of a couple hundred, just spreading them all over the place. This is kale. It is a I forget the variety. There's a little kale there. Then there's I think this is dill. So a lot of these this here is dill. That is a vinca flower. Don't eat that. There's some carrots. I've always struggled with getting my carrots to germinate properly. I think they need more sand. Another long growth type of vegetable. These are another type of kale, like a Russian red, I believe. And these the kale is growing quite well this year, and that's a fun one to like kale. You can see I got a lot of Russian red in here. This is broccoli rabe, and you can use, what did my camera do? I guess it's still working. Yeah. So this is broccoli rabe, which I didn't know what I was planting. I was thinking it was something like the asparagus broccoli, but actually, I've not seen it do any flowering yet. But you can use it as mustard greens or collard greens. So you want to blanch it quickly, and then you can mix it in any kind of Italian stir fry. They're a great green. I've enjoyed using those, and they are prolific. You can see some perennial. This one over here is a rosemary. It's a perennial, grows year round. And you can see some of these have these are there's some, I think I would say, snail damage. Doesn't affect the flavor, but I grow organically, so I'm not spraying them with anything. These are more this here is beets. They're a little more mature. Then and always on my gardens, this year not as much, but I always have some flower mixed in. That's still some lantana that's doing a fall flowering, but pretty cool. And there's a eggplant. As soon as you get a frost, that eggplant will be dead. And same on there's some basil. That's a volunteer basil. You can see more onions. There's some fennel there. This one is a fennel. That one needs a harvesting. We've not. There's another row of beets. These ones I started later, so they're smaller. There's some bok choy. The bok choy, the flea beetles will really dig bok choy. If you plant some radishes near them, supposedly that will pull the flea beetles. They prefer the radish. The flea beetles don't hurt. Usually they'll survive. They're not killing it off. I can see some on this plant. If you look closer, there's a little black bug right there. I just grabbed one. They like all the cabbages, and as it gets warm out, then they start getting active. If it's really cold, it's sitting in the 40s and 50s, they're kind of non-existent. More beds over here have done the same thing. These do not have a sprinkler system, but I have a manual, or just a timer I'm putting on it, and a lot of this is also watered. If I'm home, I will water it with the aquaponics water, which I think I've talked about on previous videos. But using aquaponics water is kind of nice because it's got nitrates, and the pH is balanced down for the aquaponics, and it helps balance out, if you're, especially in the wintertime here, where my plants in my aquaponics are not absorbing as many nitrates. It's nice to dilute some of the water, adding fresh water in, use some of that in your garden. And you can see here's chives. This is another one that is perennialized. I've had that for 4 or 5 years actually. More broccoli rabe. You can see there, this is broccoli rabe. Arugula is a fun one. These the flea beetles love that too. Then there's some spinach down here. This is a spinach. I've always struggled with getting spinach. Every once in a while it'll take off. These are cabbages. I have a bunch of cabbage plants I picked up at the local garden store and then kind of interspersed them in. I like to kind of spread things around instead of everything in one spot. I think it looks a little better. More fennel down in there. The broccoli rabe's kind of crowding it out, but that's okay. And there's some more radishes over here. Radishes are a great fall winter thing. They probably you're harvesting in 30 to 45 days. By 60 days, they're getting kind of big and bitter. And I've noticed that if it's hot out or dry, they'll get hotter and more pungent. If it's cooler, they're getting pretty sweet. You can see a pretty good looking beet down in there starting to form. Then the back there's more carrots in the front, and then behind it is onions. And behind that is potatoes. So there's the potatoes. As soon as you get a frost, those will die back to the ground. But so I'm kind of gaming the weather. I've noticed the last several years that we've not gotten a frost till January, so I'm thinking so September through January, till we get a frost, I can get a crop in of various things. So up here in the aquaponics bed, this one, as my tomatoes always do, out of control, growing a lot of greens. I need to work on dwarf varieties. I've thrown some cabbages in here. This is a eggplant. I did a struggle. I couldn't find good eggplants at the grocery store, so starting them in seeds, and then they took a long time to actually get going. There's a little broccoli rabe in here, more cabbages. Then back over here, more. This is all aquaponics, of course. There's some Brussels sprouts, another tomato. Here's some cherries. I think cherries are a great fall. You can see cherries in here. They're a great fall tomato because they will go to fruit the fastest. They're the shortest developing time. Here's a bunch down in here. They've done doing quite well. This is a plant I think I put in. Let's see, I transplanted in. It's a small plant in early September. This bed over here I just turned over, so this has got lots of good fall things. This is radishes on the outside. And then I've got some bok choy. This row here is bok choy. I'm going on the theory that hopefully the flea beetles are not as prevalent in the gravel, and B, that they'll go for the radishes instead of the bok choy. They do look like those dakin radishes. A little bit of flea beetle damage, but not a crazy amount. And then there's some chard over there that's barely coming up. And then there's some more beets in here. The roots, anything that does not like to be super wet is going to struggle in aquaponics. So I think things like radishes, we'll see. Over here, a bunch of radishes. These are broccoli plants. Some mismatch of seeds. There's a lot of I forget what that is. I think it might be, I'm not sure, I'm not going to guess. These are broccoli or cabbage. Here's another eggplant from those batch I started later on, and again that will as soon as we get a freeze, that'll be gone. And the tomatoes too. The tomatoes won't take a freeze at all. Here's an eggplant that I've been going all summer. There's several that I took out. This one is still going strong. I've actually been slicing them up thin and throwing them in the dryer. I have one of those vegetable dryers, fruit dryers, and you run it overnight, and then you dry them in these little tiny wafers. Then you can just put them in a bag and save them for later, and they're great to crunch up into soups. More, say it's broccoli. One interesting one I've tried this year, and this grew all through the summer underneath shade cloth and other plants. These are actually ginger plants, and I could harvest these now. I think they've been going since spring sometime. I think I planted them. They would be pink ginger, and then when they start dying back, and that'd be the traditional ginger, hard ginger you see in the store, ginger root. Here's a dwarf tomato. I've been playing around some different tomato varieties, and it's got one on there, but this one has been shaded. You see I have all this. This had various squash vines on it that was kind of shading. A lot of this was struggling. In here you can still see some more ginger. And the gingers kind of liked that shaded. They like having wet roots. It's actually a fun thing to throw in aquaponics. There's a little Swiss chard that I did this summer, growing in the shade. More ginger in there underneath this huge, this is a Cherokee tomato. And I've harvested a couple off it. It really struggles. As you can see, I believe this is mold, like a mold fungus that's attacking them. And they seem a little susceptible to it, and that's just a fall tomato problem. So anything you're trying to grow in the fall, you want to make sure that it's the mold and leaf mold tolerant, or not as susceptible to it. There are a bunch. Where are they? There's good. You can see them up there. There's a bunch of them ripening. So it's throwing off tomatoes, but this is one that I nursed through the summer. Really, it has something growing to absorb nitrogen out of the aquaponics, but I've had to nurse it through. I'm not sure I would nurse a tomato plant through the summer again. Probably better to go to dwarf variety, something like a celebrity that grows fast and stays a little smaller. The other one that's been fun in this extension cord here is I've added some lights. I'm seeing if I like them or not. But the one that's been fun are these vinca plants that I put in these little planters that I had. They're windowsill planters, but I converted them to aquaponics by putting the liquid rubber, a bunch of coats of liquid rubber, and use some of the sealing tape as well. And they've and this is a gravel bed, and I have it on a timer, so it kicks off for 5 minutes every half hour or something like that. And but they have grown like crazy. They've like this, that you can see here. That's a shaded area, so it doesn't get a lot of direct sunlight. Maybe an hour or two. And the vincas seem to thrive on that, and they like being in the aquaponics. And it's kind of cool, kind of dresses up they're getting kind of old now. I mean, they've been going all summer long. And then up in the barrel, this is a radial flow filter, and so I typically stick some what's this? I forget the name of it. I'll write it in the thing. It's something you don't want to let get out of your aquaponics into the lakes. Raccoons love this stuff, and then the tilapias like it too. So I'll periodically throw one in the tilapia tank. So that's kind of fall gardening. It, growing, like I say, you can grow a lot of greens. I've not had much luck with lettuce. Oh, the other thing is peas. And there's a bunch of pea plants you can see that I've started over here, and there's some others that are farther behind. Snow peas are a great winter thing. They'll take frost pretty well and keep going. See a few have come up over here. These are just literally pea seeds. I just stuck them an inch down in the substrate, and just they come up because they're constantly getting watered. The gravel stays a lot wetter, so you can see the peas in the gravel have germinated much better than the peas that are in the aerated clay balls. Maybe if I push them down a little farther into the substrate, they would have done a little better. There's some peas I did in here. I had a couple extra through in here. These are younger. But I think overall they probably like the gravel a little better. So I'm planning to do a video on substrates too. The two things I played with are the gravel and the aerated clay, and both have advantages and disadvantages. So that's it on garden. The other thing I'll say on my winter garden, though you don't have to do it, I have a hot water loop and heating coils I've added in, and at some point I will do a video on that. It's certainly been a lot of time and effort to get that right. You can see a heating coil there, and so that I think overall that keeps the roots warmer, so the plants are growing water, and if you have tilapia, they need to be kept really above 70, ideally 75 to 85. Is probably a reason why I would not do tilapia in an aquaponics. And that hot water is actually generated with I have a inline hot water heater that the water is circulating through with a pump. And it's quite an elaborate system and a lot of time and effort and maintenance. So thank you for walking through this all. I know it's a long video, but if you're thinking of winter gardening, hopefully I gave you a couple good ideas. If you like the video, you like the content, please click the like, please click the subscribe. It helps my metrics for getting it out to more people. And if you need help designing a system, or you have questions, or how to fix something or address it, you want to do aquaponics, you want to just do a simple fish scape, I'm happy to help out, consult on any of those type of projects. I think it would be fun. Designing garden beds, whatever you are interested in, I'm happy to talk with you and bounce ideas off. So have fun gardening. We'll talk to you soon.